The first thing that came to me when he said that is when you get tipped off course, just go off course, because you never know what you're going to find down another creative tunnel. And so if something's not going well for me, I don't push through it. I mean, I never have deadlines. It's like my own personal deadlines, but I just feel like it's forced and it's actually then not creative. It's like me just coming up with something in my intellect, which is not where creativity lies.
Welcome to the Healing Cocoon. I'm Jacoby Gray, soul alignment and success coach and energy healer, which means I can intuit the subtle layers of your energy field to promote ultimate health and well-being. My goal for this podcast is to shed light on the healing journey itself and help you feel more supported as you embark on the process of unpacking your past to consciously create your present and start living the life of your dreams. Through the study of coaching, kinesiology, holographic kinetics, meditation, Reiki, the chakra system, and many other modalities, I've learned how to release the blocks that were holding me back. Now I'd love to help you do the same. By embarking on your own self-healing process, you'll see the world transforming around you in ways you never thought possible. You'll begin to experience more connection, clarity, love, fulfillment, synchronicity, and success than you've ever had before. So welcome to the Ascension. Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to the next episode of the Healing Cocoon podcast. I've just sat down to record this introduction and a summer storm. We're having a summer storm here in Nashville, and I don't know if you can hear it, but it's kind of wild out there. Reminds me of my Brisbane summers back in Australia when I was studying, and it would be really hot and humid during the day, and then we would just get these wild storms in the afternoon. It's kind of strangely familiar living here in Nashville. So today I'm chatting with one of my good friends, but also someone who is an extreme inspiration to me. Her name is Kat Verlaine, and I met her when I did my yoga teacher training. As it seems, I've met everybody I'm interviewing on this podcast at my yoga teacher training, but I can't express how incredible the humans are. It was like one of those moments in time when a whole bunch of really awesome humans came together, and they all in their own rights are very powerful healers. And so you will hear from a lot of them on this podcast. But Kat Verlaine was a guest teacher, and she is someone who is so connected not only to the earth, but also to her higher self, spirit, the universe. She literally just channels books. She's written 3 books, and she just sits down, and she's very disciplined. She definitely creates the creative container to receive the information on a daily basis. But she literally just downloads these books, and they're brilliant. So she's the author of 3 books, A Timeless Birth, Yoga as Origami, and The Wild Rhythms. But Kat is also a very well, I was going to say developed, but a very well-known and learned yoga teacher. She's studied Katona, she's studied all kinds of yoga, and if you can ever get to do a class with Kat Verlaine, please do yourself a favor and take her class. She's also the creator of a clean and fresh beauty line called Fumescent, and Kat currently lives in the Central Coast of California with her husband Charlie and their daughter Plum, and together they're creating a life of sustainability in their off-grid tiny house while practicing simple living and regenerating the earth's soils. And we will put Kat's handles, like her Instagram handle, etc., at the end or in the show notes of this, because I feel like everyone should follow Kat Verlaine on Instagram, because you will see such an incredible example of someone who is living off the grid. So anyway, without further ado, Kat Verlaine. Kat, welcome to the Healing Cocoon.
So excited to. Thank you for asking me to come.
Of course. Kat and I have known each other for a few years now, 3 or 4 years, I would say, since you were a guest teacher at the yoga teacher training that I did. And you were very impacting in my life at that time with your knowledge and your wisdom in yoga, specifically Katona, but I know that you've studied many forms. And perhaps we could sort of start there. Is that where your journey onto the path of healing began, when you first began your yoga teaching?
I think so. If I like really trace it all the way back, I never really had anyone close to me pass away. And my Nana passed away when I was just finishing university, and I was finishing my accounting degree. So it was like a really hard time to start to lose someone, because you're just like in the middle of your finals. And what was the most interesting part, though, was like watching her whole experience with the Western medical system. And like, she was totally fine even when she was diagnosed with cancer. And then it was right when the Western medical system started poking and prodding and giving her chemotherapy that her health really started to perish. And I think it was just watching that whole cascade of events that actually catapulted my healing journey. Because I remember it was the first time that I was actually thought I was going to fast and like do a cleanse, which was like not on my radar at all. And I think I was 20. And so watching that whole thing unfold, I was almost stunned, like shocked. Like I moved away to Vancouver and just like took a lot of time to myself, and I found like the vegan lifestyle. That's when I found yoga after I hurt myself from running a half marathon. I didn't prepare as well as I should have for. And I think it was that initial experience for me that I was like, this person was like perfectly healthy in my eyes, and like what went wrong. And I just realized truly, if I look back and look forwards, that at that moment I was like, wow, one really has to just take responsibility for oneself, like in every aspect of their life. And then you'll never get blindsided, then it would just, if you are blindsided, it's like your own fault. And so I think that's really what got me on the healing path of like, okay, this is my body. It's my responsibility to put good foods in it, to take care of it, to exercise well, to not over exercise it, to find the moderation in everything. And so I quit my job and I started traveling everywhere, and yoga was something I always came back to in my body that gave me a sense of like rootedness when I was in other countries.
Amazing. So it was that journey from the experience of your grandma passing and understanding that you needed to take responsibility for your life, and then finding moderation. Would you say that you've achieved moderation now? And how long did that actually take you to get to that space?
Gosh, I will say I was very austere when I was first learning moderation, which I thought was moderation, but it's not. I would like go meditate for 10 days in a temple in Thailand and like not eat anything but like the meager portions they gave you. And I did a lot of fasting and cleansing, and like intense fasting, like 7-day golden cleanses, and like just totally, and I know I needed to do that at the moment, but now that I've become a mother, I really find that like I don't really have time to think about how austere I should be or not. I'm just like, I'll have a glass of wine once in a while, and I just find everything is a little bit less like rigid and strict. And it is really moderation. I eat anything I want, but I just eat small portions, and I don't really eat processed food at all. But if it's like, meat or cheese or whatever it is, high quality, organic, all that kind of stuff, food that I grow, but I just never overeat, it's just, for me, it's always been like very like strict. Like I was a very good disciplinarian for myself, and now somehow I like saw through that portal, and I'm just very easygoing about it all, except I just don't eat junk food. I guess I don't see the point. It's not food.
Yeah, and I know that you observe you did. I don't know if that also has changed since you've become a mother, but you observed quite a strict routine in terms of your morning ritual. Do you still do that and get up and do all the yoga and all the bits and pieces and the meditations? How do you balance all of that?
Oh gosh, I don't even see that as strict now. It's like the opposite. I like wake up early. I'm like, this is my time. No one can disturb me. So I like get up, I light a candle, I do my yoga practice in the morning all by myself. I love it so much. It's like my sacred special time. So yeah, I don't even see that as strict. I just I wake up, I record all my dreams because I love watching my dreams. They're very important to me because they show me a lot. And then I just get up and do my own routine and practice, and I love it so much. So yeah, I still do that, and I do it at night too before I go to bed. I still always keep my practices because they're what keeps me centered and what keeps me patient and understanding to my daughter, who's 2 and is has a ton of huge emotions that I don't want to tell her she can't have. Like I felt like I was told because I like wouldn't express my emotions, and I just know that to be able to process her emotions is to be able to experience them fully. So I just need to be able to sit with her when I want her to be like, please stop crying, it's okay, but like just keep crying until you're done, you know? It's not a big deal.
Yeah, was that a process of deconstruction for yourself, growing up and being told you can't feel? Did you, and then I mean, studying accounting, and obviously I don't want to make any assumptions,
Yeah.
but going into the very logical side of the brain, the non-feeling side, what was the process of deconstruction for you that has now allowed you to like hold space for your daughter's emotions?
You know, gosh, I will say about accounting, that's my other wake up. I was like, everyone here is miserable and they've been here for 20 years. Why do they stay here? I was like, I'm leaving before I get that deep. But yes, because it is very much like that. The whole society we're brought up into is like just don't show your emotions, like just be calm and cool and like just get through it and like deal, right? Like I think the thing that triggers me the most is the keep calm and carry on and all the renditions of that. I'm like, no, like we should not keep calm. No one that wanted change ever kept calm. You know, there's a fire inside. And so for me, really like being in my own power and like not listening to what anyone says and just doing it my way and like how my intuition tells me to do it has been my most powerful gift, I think, that allowed me to like look back and be like, oh my God, there are so many ways where like I didn't say what I wanted to say, you know? And I think it's easy when I don't know if that answers your question, but when you like leave from the scenario you're in, like go traveling or whatever, to really start to see like where, when watching your mind, like where I should have said that. I should have spoke up for myself, because when I don't speak up for myself, I'm not speaking up for others and their ability to speak up for themselves, you know, and keeping quiet never did anyone good. So I think it's not opinions, but it's like the deep intuition side that says, I need to act right now, or I need to talk right now, or like, that's not okay, is really setting like the blueprint for other people to do the same, you know, like quantumly, physically, like people that see you, but just, it's like, it's ripples that go through.
Yeah, and I think people underestimate the power of travel as a growth tool. And obviously since 2020, everything's changed in that perspective. But I think, just like you said, when you travel, you suddenly get to let go of all the people that you were trying to please and all the fronts that you were trying to put on, and you allow yourself to become something different. I know when I moved countries, I was like, oh, I can be whoever I want here. And there is something very freeing in that. But then there's also a process of, then when you go back to the roots and back to your home, how do you reconcile the new person you've blossomed into when everybody back home is trying to hold you to the binds of how they knew you? And I know you're from Canada and now live in America. Can you speak to that experience at all?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've like left home and gone home so many times, and you know, it's just, I think everyone's on their own personal path, and it was at first really hard for me to like, even my friends or like anyone in Canada was like, don't pass judgments on people. But it's like, don't you see, like I got away and I like understood things and grew up or like whatever. But I also think it's like the big disadvantage to doing that, right? To like being able to remove yourself from a situation and go back to it, because it's like, it's created this sense of like spiritual supremacy. I don't know a different word for it, where like, oh, I just did yoga for like a month or like 2 years or like 3 years, or I just saw like all this stuff in this country. And I also think, especially since like we're not all traveling so much, that same sense of feeling can be found just in like isolating yourselves in your house and like pursuing your creative interests and, you know, taking time away from your job. I mean, everyone's quitting their job right now because they don't want to be doing garbage jobs anymore. They're like, wait, I'm not going to subscribe to this system if the system's going to be like this. And so I think there's a lot of power in the staycation, is that what people call it, where you're at home, and it's not as damaging or like as jolting. Like when people go away and do ayahuasca for like a month and come home, it's like jolting and like very damaging to the nervous system, because you saw so much and you can't reconcile it. And so that ability, you know, eventually I was like, oh, really what it is it's like, you know, bite your tongue. You're going to upset someone, right? In that sense, because you can't change anyone. You can only change yourself in your situation, how you're perceiving the situation. And so a lot of it is like, I think my favorite thing is when I studied Taoism and met Taoist teachers, they were just like the most humble beings that just like wash dishes, or like were mothers that cared for their children. And they didn't need to have this like big spiritual title or whatever it is. I think the ability to be like really humble and to be able to perceive something but not try to change anyone else's beliefs, because everyone has their own beliefs on reality, actually accommodates space for like them to eventually do whatever they want to do, maybe change their beliefs, right? But the minute like these opinions are like, this is my belief system, you must believe it, or can't you see this, it's met with another resistance where it's like, no, it's this way, and so you're just creating more tension in this situation rather than accepting someone for who they are and the choices they made and the circumstances they made. And then in that way, I'm accepting myself for what I did also. It is very hard, but at the same time, it's like I really do believe we're just on all these beautiful journeys. And if we can accept where everyone is on the journeys, we don't need to force anyone to be anywhere to fit into a specific mold, to like fit into a specific belief system, that there's more opportunity for like the creativity of the human to blossom and make this such a beautiful place to live, this earth,
Yes, and I think that you are, without a doubt, the champion of the honing your creativity through the staycation, because you you are honestly the most creative, inspirational person I know, living off the land, literally living off the land in your tiny home, as well as divining this is beautiful products like cosmetics and what do you call beauty products? Is that what you would call it?
They're magical. They're just magical. They just there's no real science behind it. They're like plants. They work.
Potions. Yes, but at the same time, you're writing books and you're doing all of these things, and it's all happening because of your commitment to your land and your tiny home, and sort of stepping outside of the, everyone's saying the word matrix, but, for now, let's just say you're stepping outside of the society that we've grown up in, and you're creating this space, this magical space where every day you get to play.
Yes. I mean, it's my favorite thing. I think the discipline I gave myself enabled me to find my creativity, because I would be like, okay, you're waking up at this time and you're writing for this much time, and you just have to write, and it doesn't matter if it's garbage, you just have to do it. And so like, it was always like, if I was ever doing something I loved, I did it during my slow times where like, I just want to like sleep and rest. And then if I did something I didn't like, I always made myself do it on my most energized times. So like when I wake up in the morning, I have the most energy. If I'm like painting and having a blast, by the time I go to write in the afternoon, I'm just like, I have nothing good to write. I don't want to do this, or like something that I don't want to do, And so people in general, like if one wants to be creative, and everyone is so creative, we were just like birthed inside of this like structure that we needed to break free from in order to find creativity, because it's very like, you learn this and this and this, and they make it, what is the word? Consistent, which really equates to the lowest denominator. That's the person, right? And so there's no room for the expansion. And so you just dedicate the time and find out when you love to do things, and that's like when you do what you don't want to do, when you have the most energy after your coffee or whatever. And then whenever you're tired, it's like, this is actually what I love to do. You'll do it anyway, right? Because it's your joy. And so it's just really getting manipulative with like, first you have to know yourself, and you have to know your preferences and what you like and what you don't like. And then you just manipulate your day around that. And I think that's like one of the most personal, best magic tricks like anyone can adopt if they want to be more creative. And then that discipline for myself, it just started creating, and it just started outpouring from me. But it was because I didn't subscribe to like, oh, I should get a real job, because then I wouldn't have time to do all of this. And I just had to like make it work. I've been like an entrepreneur since I was like 21, and I've never had the same career in that entrepreneurialness for the whole however many years I've done it for, 12 years or whatever. So.
And you've always been led by your passions, by your creativity, and the money has always flowed as a result. You've always been supported by trusting that support is there.
And it's not even about money, because gosh, I'm having the most interesting schooling on money right now. Because I'm like, the minute we think we can like buy something, it's like valuable to us. Like, can we buy our water and have it filtered and like move through all this stuff? As long as I can buy it and like someone else filtered it, it's like very valuable to me. Like catching the rainwater and drinking it today, and I was like, oh, it's too easy. No one's gonna want to do this because you have to pay for it. Like, I spent this much time to get it. It's just different. And so for me, like, if you want to like do what you love, you also have to like be very creative with how to make money or how to get by. So like when I was traveling in Asia, I didn't necessarily make a lot of money. I was living in Asia, like making, rupees and like things that didn't matter in Canada. But I would trade for accommodation. I would trade for, like so many different things that led me to stay there for an extended period of time. And then I didn't end up spending any money. So then actually my like money that I slaved for, like really worked hard for, it's a bad word, sorry, that I really worked hard for. I went back to Canada and I like had a whole traveling experience, and then I came home with some money, and that was nice. And so, you have to get really creative with like, because in times when currency is so fluctuating, like money shouldn't be the end goal. It should be like, how do we get creative with each other's resources? That's why I've always loved the barter system. I do it as much as I possibly can. And like, I have this, you have that, let's trade you.
I'm interrupting this awesome chat to quickly tell you all about the free meditation I've created for peace, presence, and empowerment. It kind of sounds like a big promise, but when you break it down, a sense of inner peace comes from being present because you're not feeling anxious about the past or worried about the future. You're simply with this moment here, right now. And empowerment is also a byproduct of presence, because what's the one similarity you notice about the people in your life who have the confidence to ask for what they need and want, not in a pushy or narcissistic way, but in a way that feels genuine, clear, and unattached to the outcome of their ask, which ultimately then makes you more receptive to fulfilling their needs and wants. That's true empowerment. And that one similarity that all those people have in common is presence. So this meditation is designed to give you a repeatable experience of presence so that you can begin integrating those feelings of peace and empowerment into your everyday life. I'd love for you to try it out, ideally 2 to 3 times a week for a month. I know it's a commitment, but you've got this. And let me know what starts shifting for you once you do. So pop onto our website, thehealingcocoon.co, that's C-O, not .com, and download your free audio track right now. So have you built whole businesses on the barter system, or is there a point when you kind of have to exchange money?
No, I mean, money's like I think Charlie says, because I'm like, I'm going to create a whole underground barter economy. This is my goal right now. And he's like, I'm going to want your barter economy until the real economy completely crashes. And I'm like, whatever. And isn't that the like idea of Western medicine? Like, don't worry about your body until it breaks. We'll go fix it. But the whole preventative medicine is like, let's create something now. Let's make our body healthy now so that it never breaks. So I think what's really important right now is to create such strong and resilient structures within your community so that even if the outside world crashes, you all have, food, you're growing your own food, you're collecting your own water, you've got gifts to share. People have like their gifts of like magical potions. My friend has like chanterelles flowing out of his like place, like on all of his land, and like black sage. And so when we can really become like, I know it's different where everyone's living, but like resilient within community, we become stronger. And so though I've never made a true barter system, I've always like exchanged, and like, I just love it more because I feel like it takes the middleman out, and I shouldn't say it, but then none of your money's leaving to like a third party you don't see, and you don't know what they're going to do with your money. And then you're not supporting that system, which I think is the most.
I mean, if anyone can pioneer an underground bartering system, I think it's you.
I dreamed it up for weeks, and don't tell Charlie.
So coming back to your creative process, and you were talking about your routine, and the routine becomes the container for the creativity to strike and fill. Do you ever have bad days or days of where your emotions get the better of you and you can't focus, or is it about pushing through regardless? Like, do you ever get tipped off course? Because I know one of the perils of being creative is that sometimes you succumb to the emotional roller coaster of being creative.
Yes, the first thing that came to me when you said that is when you get tipped off course, just go off course. Because you never know what you're going to find down another creative like tunnel. And so if something's not going well for me, I don't push through it. I mean, I never have deadlines. It's like my own personal deadlines, but I just feel like it's forced, and it's actually then not creative. It's like me just like coming up with something in my intellect, which is not where creativity lies. And so like the best thing I do now is like I'm digging all these trenches. So if I like can't be creative. I like really don't have time right now anyway, but when I like couldn't get the words out or whatever, I would just like go and like just smash the digging board into the ground. You know, you gotta channel the energy that you have into something that's going to be quite useful. And so, you know, whether it's like a punching bag, if you're in a city, like whatever it is, everyone's got like maybe a little piece of land they can work with. But, you know, when you know how to like direct the flow of your emotions, then you can use all of them to your advantage, right? Like those fiery emotions are so good for getting stuff done that you don't want to. You're like, fine, now this is what I'll do it. And the like soft and like nice emotions and like the happiness and stuff is great for different creative projects. And then in the end, you know, anything that your hands are doing that you're, you know, is a creative process. So if you just find places in your whole life where, you know, your life can be just a form of art. And I really find that definitely my yoga practice and meditating and just like keeping myself on track with that is something that really helps me to find my center so that my emotions don't just start flinging off all over the place. I just can keep coming back to myself and I'm like, oh, this is like some of my best paintings have come about where I'm like, God, this looks horrible. And I'll just like start smashing it with colors and like moving it around. And I'm like, wow, this just turned out really beautiful. So you don't actually really see like what, until the end, you're like, oh, I didn't really see that was actually part of the creative process was for me to like go through all of those emotions because like the best artists, like you can feel all of their emotions in that one piece of art, whatever it is that they produced.
And I think that sums up the healing process as well. Often when you're inside it, you can't see until you get to the other end why you had to go through all of those deep, dark stretches of pain and guilt or shame or whatever it is that you're working through. Yeah. Have you had many dark nights of the soul, and has it always been yoga that's pulled you back, or do you have other tools as well?
I definitely have had a lot of dark times. And I have to say that since finding my practices and like knowing what my practices mean to me, it's not happened very frequently anymore. And so when it used to happen, you know, I got talked down a lot as a child, which most people do talk down to their children. And I really don't do that to my daughter. I'm just like, when she's showing me something and I think it should be a different way, I'm like, show me what you're doing. Because like, look, she probably has like a better idea than I do. I just have conditioning. And so like when I do get to those dark times, I would just start talking down on myself. And this was so long ago. So it's hard to even be in that space anymore because it's hard to get back up. But definitely I will say that like, I always come back to yoga because I do it every day, but just like joy cultivating practices. So everyone has like a different practice that they love to do, or if, you know, they have the potential to find it because you can do anything these days, right? Online, just find it. And when you keep cultivating that joy, you just realize you get mirrored back to you those same experiences. So the more joy I cultivate and the more optimism I cultivate and like the more excitement about life I cultivate, you know, I get that back to me with my interactions. And then when I start to get down and I like very bitter towards society, I start to see bitterness. And then it shows me right away what I'm feeling and perceiving because it's showing me. And I'm like, oh my God, don't do that. Anyone can do that. Anyone can be angry. Anyone can be bitter, right? It's like so easy. And so then I'm like, all right, joy, happiness, like excitement. And if I don't feel that way, I just like try not to go out because then I'm giving people my garbage, you know? And so I think it's really important when we start to regulate our own emotional experiences and perceive our inner thought processes, which does happen about like things like meditation and just like stilling yourself and observing your thoughts. Like, what do you tell yourself all the time? You really start to see what you're attracting in because that's like the field, for lack of a better word, that you're living in. It's a mirror. It's like, I'm going to keep showing you until you see like what you're doing. And like some people get so deep into that it's like, oh my God, it's like this. And it feels like four walls are keeping it on you. And so ideally you stop that before it happens. You're like, wait, like I can get myself out of this. And it's definitely a harder practice, but with technique comes skill, comes skillful means wu wei, effortless effort. And eventually it's just your state of mind because you work so hard at it, but no one can see the art that like it's a craft, right? You can't see the technique that's happening behind the scenes because it became so masterful.
Yeah, I think the world is absolutely a reflection of our internal life. And that's one of the first things that we learn and we understand. And as part of taking responsibility for ourselves is that whatever it is we're perceiving is what we're essentially believing, well, internally experiencing, and then as a result, drawing that in like a magnet. And I know that you've helped a lot of people through being a yoga teacher, and you've hosted a lot of courses on women's wellness and womb health and all kinds of amazing things. And you also have written this beautiful book called A Timeless Birth. How has the experience of birthing Plum now impacted how you teach and relate to women and help them get in touch with their natural flows and the flow of the land?
Oh my gosh. Becoming a mother is probably, I mean, every mother will say it, one of the most profound moments, because like you're literally in your labor, you just think you're going to die. And you are, like, there's a piece of you so different that you leave behind that just dies. And it's like, it's the intensity. It's like every single emotional experience you've had right there. And you're being faced with everything in that moment. And it gave me so much empathy, I think, towards like what all mothers go through, and like, you know, how hard it is to be a mom and how much you're juggling, especially in this age. But I also can see through like easily all of the stories that women create around not being able to birth themselves and not being able to birth at home, and like needing the medical system, which is another thing that like since I was like 20, I was like, we shouldn't have to need the medical system. And the more involved the medical system gets, you know, the more things go wrong in certain ways. Don't want to get sensitive or anything. Anyway, I've seen what is happening right now is like the feminine itself has this deep uncertainty that we're like, something's wrong with us. Like the people, there's something wrong with me, my body, nature didn't give me everything I needed to be able to do whatever task it is that I have to do, whether it's, you know, fighting off a cold, whether it's giving birth to a baby, you know, it's the same thing that's underlying everything, is that something's wrong. When really, if you look at nature, nothing's wrong. Nature knows exactly what to do. She's genius. She's brilliant. That's why we're here. That's why we've lasted so long. Like, she did not mess up, you know? And so after giving birth and like starting to experience life through another tiny divine human's eyes, I really see that like we are so well equipped to actually not need systems in a sense. Like the ability to be so adaptable to like whatever your parents are doing. You know, I just think it's a really big gift. And to be able to perceive life through like a very clean lens is also very fascinating. To like see things a way you've never been able to see them before, or perceive them before, or like do something like you know, the imagination of a 2-year-old is insane. You're just like, wow, I never would have. I'm so boring. Like, how did I lose all of my? You think I'm creative? I'm like, oh my gosh, no. You know, and so I think it has really shown me that in order to like refine our creativity and our imagination and how we're going to get ourselves out of this mess on the planet, is really to actually erase everything that we think we know about everything we think we know. It's just to get back to like, what tools can I use with what is around me? And stick this in here, put this over here. Like, you know, be an amateur. Because it's through like being an amateur that real genius insights come about, because you're trying to look at something and do something in a way that no one's ever done it before, rather than being like, oh, you did it this way, I'll do it this way. But like, what if there's a different way? And so like, you know, we're at a point where we think everything's been invented, or like where we think we know how to do everything. We've outsmarted all of it, and it's all crumbling and breaking and crashing. And so it's going to be the people that are like, what's another way I can do this? I can like make it through this, stay joyful, like I'm just trying to capture so much rainwater in the ground right now. And I'm just like watching the flow of the water and what grasses are green right now. I'm like where I need to like dig trenches and like put stuff and like, you know, because it also like, it like satisfies that piece of myself that's like, I've never done this before. I want to learn something new. And I like, don't want to read it from a book. I just want to like have it well up from within me and learn my mistakes as I go. Because then it shows me like, you know, what went wrong.
And I mean, you've always had that, you've been very intuitive when it comes to the land. I know that you've created your magical potions because you're so passionate about plants and understanding their healing properties and wanting people to be able to use those as balms and salves to heal themselves or to prevent, as you said, rather than create a cure for something. And so it's all about that wellness. But your intuition and your connection to the land is something that has always served you. And I think you've been, but even before you really committed to 100% sustainable living, you were often to be found walking the woods somewhere, weren't you? Just completely alone picking plants and wondering, what does this tree do? What does this plant do? Do you think that was something you were just born with, that natural curiosity to understand botany?
Yeah, and I've actually never done any courses on it, so I can't even I hear that word and I'm like, God, what am I even? I literally sometimes just feel like a deer. I just roam whatever wild spaces I can find, because I do believe that there's this piece in me and inside of all of us that was birthed from the wild, and it's take me back to not when it was brutish and hard, but we've evolved so much mentally. Can we not have that compassion and that empathy and go back to that wildness and have more space for, that more elevated emotions within that context? And so when I go in nature and I just try to perceive what's going on and what plants are in which stages of their life cycle. And so what parts of the plant would be more medicinal at the moment. So in spring, it's the sprouts, and summer, if the plant's flowering, it's not the leaves anymore. The flower has the medicine. In autumn, the flower turns into seeds, and so the medicine's in the seed, and then in winter, it all goes back down into the roots, and then the medicine's in the root. And so just knowing the life cycle of any plant, you can read it in a book, or you can go outside and just be okay, there's some flowers over here, there's some leaves over here. I do remember when I was a kid, always going through a river valley and picking Saskatoon berries and cranberries, and there's just clovers everywhere. And when I really started to look into weeds, and I got really obsessed with weeds and making my teas through weeds, I just was oh my God, there's a whole magic that people step on and are dandelions. And I put little rocks around my dandelions in my garden. I'm nobody touched these. My precious babies that just grew there without me having to do anything. And nature's really incredible in that way. And weeds are the most nutritious things that we can take in. And they're everywhere. They're prolific. They literally go wherever we stomp our feet and ruin something. They're let me regenerate the soils. They're so generous and kind. And why would one not want to take more of that into their bodies? And plantain, if plantain leaf is good to clean waters. If you don't know if you can drink water if you're hiking, you just put plantain leaf in it, let it sit for a while, and chew it in your mouth. Everywhere. Plantain is one of the most prolific plants that's everywhere. And so when you really get into the depths of what nature is providing, I go to the grocery store and I'm gosh, this takes so much effort to make all of this stuff. What are we doing? First of all, the processed foods, but then even the cultured, the really fancy vegetables. I grow them in my own garden, and I definitely use more weeds than anything else. And so it's just funny, how far we've come and how complicated we've made things for ourselves. And then so every time, to put my thought process back, I go back into nature. I just I get so creative. When I wrote the Wild Rhythms, it was right when the pandemic or whatever, the freak out happened, and they were stay at home. And I was I'm going to use this to my advantage, make opportunity out of this crisis. I'm just going to start channeling what everyone needs to hear right now. And I would just walk through the wild lands for half an hour, and it would just come pouring through me. And I was waking up at 4 a.m. to write this stuff down. So it was definitely a force greater than myself. And it was also very precious. And I wrote it in 3 weeks. And so when I'm in nature, I just feel this cleansing happens, and everything that I think I know about the world just dissolves, because everything that there is to know about the world is in nature, and it's the only thing that will live through anything. And so I just I do feel that the most humblest version of myself, because I'm well, there's a bobcat that roams around here. We have to scatter it away before we let the chickens out. And the nature's scary too. And I kind of being a little bit scared by nature. I'm come on, the storms, the everything about her is just fierce. And that's really how I believe a woman in her power is.
I love that. Beautiful segue into the rising feminine. Fumescent is in service, absolutely, of the rising feminine, I feel. And can you speak a little bit about your how the seed of creation that became Fumescent?
Oh my gosh, I guess maybe my morning stories turned into power stories. My one friend brought me a little vial of essential oil, and I had never smelled a real essential oil. I thought I did. I was using essential oils, and then I smelled this one, and I was what is this? This is so different. And my nose instantly knew that there was no synthetics or anything in it. And they'll cut essential oils with so much garbage, you can't even believe, just to make them cheaper. So I smelled this essential oil, and I was oh my gosh, my whole life changed at that moment. And so I finally found the places to source them that were pure. And that was their focus of just straight distillations. And I really just started to work with them, and I would just make my own products for myself, and people would always want them. So I just slowly started making personalized products for people based on like their emotions. And like most of my yoga students, like that I knew well, and I knew like what plants that they needed more in their life to help them, you know, open their heart or like ground them or like calm them or like give them fire, because some people need fire. Everyone needs something different. And it wasn't until I moved to LA and my dog had gotten really sick and started to get paralyzed, and I was like, you know, we were like living down this like millions of stairs, and he was a Great Dane, so I like couldn't really start like leaving the house anymore. And so I started to channel that energy into just creating a whole line. And that's kind of when the first line was birthed, I think just like 3 and a bit years ago.
So for Hamlet, your dog, I didn't realize it was Hamlet who was the inspiration and your need to help him. Beautiful puppy.
And I think it was my own need to like soothe my own soul, because the scents for me is like such a way for me to breathe deeper and to calm my body and my nervous system. And like that was like the one thing from Canada that I had. It was like my safety blanket was like leaving me. So, you know, a part of me was like in deep mourning and was so upset, and he was like my buddy. And, you know, of course I felt like I did him wrong. And so it was like, I really think like I was started really using oils then, like going crazy about them, because I just like needed my nervous system to be okay, to not be like regretful of the things I was doing. And then Fumescent was birthed out of that. And of course it's been on through so many renditions, but that's also what I think it should be, because if the minute something gets stagnant, it's no longer relevant. Right? Times are always changing. Everything's always moving forward. And so it's like the evolutionary capacity to keep things interesting that like lets us evolve and lets things be relevant to our circumstances.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today on the Healing Cocoon podcast. I have really enjoyed chatting to you about all the beautiful creations that you are birthing on the planet right now. And I can't wait for the underground barter system. I will be part of it. I hope this episode has inspired you to keep going on what can sometimes be a tough road to inner peace and true happiness. If you want to dive deeper into what we talked about today, go to thehealingcocoon.co for show notes and all things personal growth. And don't forget, if you're loving the Healing Cocoon, then put that love into action and subscribe, rate and review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcasts. And until next time, my friends, let's rise and shine together.